All right, cool. I am Josh Fabian, and this is going to be Get Up and Running with Layout Builders in Minutes. So I am the technical director at Code Koalas. I've been using Drupal for over 8 years. That's how I started professional development, was doing Drupal stuff because I knew some CSS. I like to code, 3D print stuff, work on servers. I started as a front-end dev, and I'm now the server admin because that's just how life works. I like to drive and fix my Miata because it's a really old car, so it involves lots of fixing. Sometimes I slap the bass and I make fart noises with my son, among other stuff, because he's young and that's funny to him. Cool. I mean, people could put in the chat, but I'm always just curious, how many people have used Layout Builder before versus they've never heard it, like used it, but have heard of it. It's just nice to know what we're dealing with here. I'm going to go over a very basic overview of what it is and some different terminology in it and some useful modules. And then I will do the live demo at the end where everything gets to go wrong. So showing how to configure some stuff and how some of the different modules that help make Layout Builder work a little better work. So we got a couple of people, and they both said they've used it. So that should make it easier. Hopefully I still don't miss super basic things. So first, what even is Layout Builder? So this is the description taken right off the Drupal website, but it allows content creators and site builders to create visual layouts for displaying content. Users can customize how content is arranged on a single page across content types or even landing pages with an easy-to-use drag-and-drop interface. I haven't used many other CMSs than Drupal, but I have worked in WordPress a little bit and then a couple other ones. And I'd say Layout Builder is more along the path that I notice a lot of the other ones use, where you have a bunch of tools and you can kind of just drag around the page to look how you want it. Now, with Layout Builder, that is limited to what the developers have set up for you to be able to do. But for the most part, you can create sections, create layouts, and place content in it. And that is a screenshot of like a default Drupal site, and I placed a single block in Layout Builder. And you can see I have an admin interface, but at the same time, I also have the content actually rendering on the page, because that's the issue with not using Layout Builder in Drupal is you're on the admin interface putting in fields in a piece of content, and the user doesn't necessarily know how does that actually look on the page. We've done landing pages and paragraphs before, and that's the issue. Once they figure it out, they get it. But for us, Layout Builder seems to be more intuitive because you see it as you build it, so you know what it's gonna do. So that's what is different about it than the standard admin interface. So is it any good? Because that's just because it's in core doesn't mean it's something great we want to use. So I have a screenshot. This is a website we built in Layout Builder. I've cut it and split it side by side because websites are very tall, and how do I show it on the side? But this is Nazarene.org. We redid their international website, and most pages are built with Layout Builder. And so on the left is like the top of the homepage, and as you scroll down, and then it continues over on the right. And it's a very pretty looking website, and that is all built in Layout Builder. And so they are able to create more pages that look like that with things thrown around in different orders and swap out the content all through that Layout Builder interface. So, and it does actually work decent on mobile as well. Obviously, it's a little bit different because their design is very much driven by giant background images, which don't work on mobile, but all the content flows around and works the way it should. Here's screenshots of two other ones. This is on the left. It's the same kind of deal. It's a homepage. It's all built in Layout Builder, so they can configure all those sections. You got that 4-column section. They could create another one anywhere. And then on the right is a less designed website, because I showed you the first two examples are very well designed websites. And then the one on the right is it's a wall of information, but it's for a client. We turned on Layout Builder for them, and they were able to figure it out. And they built some landing page. I don't remember what that was exactly, but it's a wall of information laid out slightly better than if we had just given them a WYSIWYG. And they were able to build a page. And in theory, it does what they need it to do for their people who view the website. So when should you use Layout Builder? Every time? Always? I don't think so. I think there are times you should use Layout Builder and there's times you should not. So our general philosophy at Code Koalas for using Layout Builder, because we were never the ones that were like all into panels or all those other visual builders before Layout Builder. So we're not like, oh, we should just build every page in Layout Builder. It's like, nope, there are times and there are times you shouldn't. But we kind of like, hey, if it's a landing page, that's a Layout Builder page. So an example of a non-landing page would be like if you have a website that sells products, your listing page that lists all the products, your home page, maybe even your contact page. Those are more a landing page with like images and they're laid out uniquely, but the individual products probably aren't built in Layout Builder because all products, like if you go to Amazon, every product page is laid out the same. So why would you build that in Layout Builder? You can, and you can even set up Layout Builder to have the same layout for every single page. And that would be more acceptable for a product example. But if we want every time someone creates a page, it to look exactly the same, that's not a Layout Builder thing. It's just adding complexity for saying you did it. But so that's our general thing. But you could also use it if you, as the site builder or the dev, like using that GUI interface. Like I said, you can set default layouts for a product in Layout Builder, and every product you create will look the same, and it's all built with Layout Builder components instead of normal components, and that would work, and that's fine. I just, as a developer, I like using templates still, and I don't want to do everything through a GUI interface. Or if it's, hey, the client just wants the flexibility. The screenshot there on the right, that's for one, that client came from one of those other systems where every page was a one-off drag and drop content. So they were very used and required the, well, we just want to be able to customize pages however we want. So it's like, well, then cool, we can use Layout Builder, and that allows you to do that without you having to ask us every time you want to make a new page and you want things laid out in a weird way. So what is the catch? Because I just said a lot of great things about it and why we really like it. The Nazarene website was the first website we had ever used it on outside of like, testing stuff locally. And it's been great. We've learned a bunch, but we've also learned some stuff that's not so great. So that website I showed that they did it and it was less pretty looking. I found this other one when I was looking for screenshots, and it's rough. It can be used to do bad stuff. Not everyone should have the ability to design what their pages look like, because I don't know what's going on here, but you have like in the middle there, you have like a 3-column, you have like a sidebar of people with images stacked. Like they're like, hey, we can make a 3-column layout and let's just throw a bunch of stuff in there. And yeah, when you let the clients do that, they can do that, and it's not always great. Another issue is that the content is unique. And so if you wanted your pages to be more uniform, or if like a branding guideline says like, hey, this is kind of what pages need to look like, maybe it's not for you because it gives people too much flexibility and they could do stuff, that looks like that screenshot over there. If you do every page in Layout Builder, it can be slow depending on how complicated your pages are. That's one of the issues Nazarene had, is they wanted to make every single page a unicorn page, and they all look good. But it was like building a page is like an hour-long event, because you have to create everything through this drag and drop interface. And you're like, man, that's how you want to do it. So, okay. But man, I would not want to be creating all those pages. Search. Now this is one, and I still don't know exactly the answer for it, but search becomes harder because that content doesn't really live on that content. It is a block placed on a page. If you placed a block through the admin interface the normal way on a page and you search for it, by default, Drupal's not going to put the content of those blocks in that search results. You can tell it to use like rendered HTML to search with Search API, but I'm still not 100% sure that the things show up right. And I know that there's got to be solutions that fix that. But that is something to consider, that your content becomes less searchable if it's all built through Layout Builder. And then we've noticed that when you set a default layout for a whole content type, it does cause issues with config if you edit it locally and push it up, because you are creating blocks, which are content, and then you're trying to push them up through config, and then those blocks don't exist. So generally for those, if we are using Layout Builder for a whole content type, generally we go up and we create the layout in staging or something and export the config and do it that way. So that way the blocks exist up in the staging or production environment. There are possibly a couple ways around that, but it is weird. And then someone's like, oh, I need to change this layout. I'm just going to go locally, as you do, change it, export config, and then they edited a block and now has a different UUID and they push it up and the whole thing goes away. So that is an issue that you have to work on. So what we ended up doing for that issue was just ignore all display configs if the display is managed by Layout Builder. Let's just put those in the ignore, and you just do it live if you have to edit it, I guess. Cool. So I was going to go over some of the general terms for Layout Builder. There's sections, there's layouts, there's regions, and then there's blocks. And so it's kind of a lot of concepts. So my understanding that I thought was the easiest to explain is sections use layouts, layouts have regions, and regions have blocks. So regions are kind of like the standard block region, where you have like a sidebar region, and inside that sidebar region is where you can place your blocks. Well, for Layout Builder, inside of your layouts, and in my screenshot here, this is a 2-column layout, and that layout has 2 regions, a left and a right region, and inside of it, I've placed 2 blocks. I like inspected it and put a red outline are the blocks, and then that blue dotted border around the block is a region, and then the whole thing that is 2 separate columns, that is a layout, and that layout is that section where you see like the configure section. That is that section in Layout Builder. So it's not that complicated, but there is a lot of terms just thrown about, and if you don't know what they are, you'll be like, wait, I need to, like, the fact that it's called a section, and I get why it's a section and a layout is different, but as far as like the admin interface, they're the same. You say add a section, it's like, okay, well, what layout do you want to use? So the section doesn't really do anything. It just holds a layout. And then, but once you're inside the layout, that makes more sense with your regions, and inside each region, you can place content. Cool. So can you just get started? Yeah, it's pretty simple. You just got to turn on the Layout Builder module, and we can start doing this. And yes, there will be a live demo, and things probably won't break. But first, there are some modules that help a lot. So first one is block list override. The problem, if you've ever used the block admin interface and you say, hey, I want to add a block outside of Layout Builder, there's a lot of blocks on your website. And here, this screenshot here, it intentionally continues to run off of the slide. This is a default Drupal 8 install. Turned on Layout Builder, that's the list of blocks. And it goes on from that. So a normal admin, they're like, great, I want to add a block. They're like, there is 100 options. What do I do? Block list override. By default, every block shows up, and it lets you limit which blocks people can place. So for example, there's like some core ones, like like breadcrumb. I don't know. Are people going to post breadcrumb? The help. No one's going to post the help in the middle of the page because that's like the Drupal admin help. They're probably maybe going to place a menu, but probably not. But you would know what fields they're not going to place, and you just make sure they can't place them. And if they ever need to, you just add it back. But you're limiting their options so they don't get super confused. So there's that module. And then the next one kind of is similar and maybe even does some of the same stuff, but layout builder restrictions. So maybe you have 4 different content types that use layout builder. And so you have a bunch of these different layouts. Well, not every layout should be available on every content type, maybe. So you can limit which layouts are available per content type, and then you can limit which blocks are available per layout. So if you have a layout that is like a skinny sidebar or something, maybe don't let them place the slideshow block in the skinny sidebar, because that's dumb and that's not going to work. So there are things like that, and the layout builder restriction is super useful. And both of those modules, when you limit the amount of blocks that show up in that sidebar, layout builder does become more responsive too, because you're not loading 100 different block options and all those in there. So the site will end up running a little bit faster. So then this next one, once you have a bunch of custom blocks, you get what you have over here on this in that picture, and you say, hey, add a custom block. And that's like any block that's a fieldable block in Drupal that you create. In our experience, this is most of the blocks that people end up doing. It's like, you have a basic block, you have one that is like makes like a little card, you have one that makes a slider, you have all these different types of blocks, and then they just show the titles in the side. Well, with this module, Layout Builder Browser, that list changes to that, where you can put screenshots of what that block will look like when it's placed. So they scroll through and they're like, oh yeah, I do want that quote that shows like a body, a citation, and then a picture there. That's the block I want to place, instead of having a million block titles, because you want to keep your block titles probably generic sounding and not be like homepage big text, because what if they want to use it not on the homepage? So you have generic titles and they're like, well, what is fancy text block? What does that even mean? Well, now you have a screenshot of what that block means. That makes their life a little bit easier. If you are using the Claro module or Claro theme, there is a layout builder module that helps make that look better. It does a couple things. One is just like general UX improvements. The media modal pops up and looks better. Some of these things I'm sure eventually will get just merged back into the Claro theme, because they are fixes. And another one is, by default, the layout builder little sidebar thing is pretty skinny. It's like, I don't know, 300 pixels maybe. And this sets it to be like 45% screen width, which when you're actually filling in content for a block, and you have like a WYSIWYG there, it being more than 300 pixels wide is pretty useful. So that module is very useful for that. The next module I've actually never used, and I found it when making the list of modules. I'm like, oh my gosh, this seems amazing. Layout Builder Styles. It allows you through the admin interface to define styles, and that would be like a pretty style name and a CSS class. And then people can attach those to blocks or layouts, I believe both of those in Layout Builder. So you could have a class that's like gray background or something, like, so that way they've even more customizable things. Anything you could change with a CSS class, you can use this module to put those on there. So that would be another very useful thing to have, depending on how complicated of layouts you need. And on ones we've made, we've ended up making on our layouts like a lot of checkboxes and stuff that could have been replaced by Layout Builder Styles, like a checkbox of like, hey, should this have extra padding on the below it? Yes or no? And you're like, yes, it should, because sometimes they had like weird overlap issues where they used 2 layouts that technically weren't supposed to be right after each other, and so one had like negative margin to like suck it up or something, and they didn't work together. So yeah, should be good. And then this is the part that I was hoping would be better, but I got stuck a little bit. So there's some modules that Code Quals has made, and it's been stuff we've made, and then I've tried to merge off into being reusable modules for the community. So we have 2, but really just one, and the other one is like if you want to live on the edge and wild and have something that doesn't work, you can use that module. I did not get it done this week. I was really hoping I would, but I did not. Because it turns out I have a job that I have to do work for too. So these are hopefully helpful modules one day. And they're all prefixed with their word quality, specifically because our CEO hates the word quality because we're code koalas. So he hates it. So now I have to name everything quality. So first one is the layouts, and that is one we actually use a lot. And it gives you a configurable layouts for 1, 2, 3, or 4 columns. You can adjust the widths of them to be like 50-50, 33-66. You can adjust if they have gutters between them, the spacing around them. You can change the background color for the whole layout or individual regions of the layout. A couple different things like that. The issues, it currently isn't bundled with any CSS. So like when I say it uses 1, 2, 3, and 4 columns, it does, and it does provide classes that then you would have to write your theme to utilize those classes. So, which I'm torn on, but I think we should probably just add the CSS. And if you don't want them, you just tell them to ignore it. Because if you don't have those classes, then it doesn't actually look right at all. And more configuration on the colors. It does have you can change the background color to be like gray, white, dark gray, just generic things. But then I saw the styles thing. I was like, oh, well, maybe we could change to use that instead. It doesn't matter. Better documentation, how to use it. Obviously, that's always a good one. Now, the layout builder blocks one. That's the one I did not get done this week. There is a module for it, and there is stuff in it. Now, what that is, it's a set base of blocks that would help you get up and running fast. Because in our experience, everything has here's a block where it's just a WYSIWYG, so you can put whatever text you want. Here's one that's an image that you can make clickable off to a different section of the website. Here's one that when you hover it, a button shows up and it changes colors. Here's one that's a card, which means it's a white background, it's image and a text and a possible link. Different blocks that we basically make on every single website. Why don't we just make those and just have this module basically just install that config? They're fields, so anything you want to customize, you just go ahead and customize it. Not a problem. But the issue I got stuck on was I couldn't get it to use my templates because modules cannot define templates that are just standard, block -- machine name of block.twig.html or html.twig, but it didn't work. So I'm like, oh, well, that's going to add more time to get that fixed. So hopefully one day. So I can go straight into the demo time. I just need to find doing just that. Okay. So now I got to change what screen I'm sharing. Application window. So many. I think that's the right one. Looks like it. And make my screen wider. There we go. Okay, so what we have here, to turn on Layout Builder, you just have to go to your content types. And I already did it for basic pages, so we'll do it for articles. You just go to Manage Display, and then let me get this window thing. And you just say, hey, use Layout Builder. Simple as that. If you want each page to be able to be customizable, then you need to say allow each content to have its layout customized. All right, so great. Now we have Layout Builder. So now where you see this Manage Display, this will take you to Layout Builder interface. But what that's going to do is that's going to set the layout for all articles, which we could do, but that's not generally how we do it. Generally, we do Layout Builder individual pages. They'll look different. So all you got to do, and this kind of addresses the search issue. So we'll do test page and we'll publish it. And so there's no actual content on this page. And now they have Layout Builder installed. You have this layout button. You click layout. And so all I have on here is the Layout Builder Claro. I have our layouts that we added. and a couple other modules, but most of them aren't being used yet. Like, I'm not limiting what blocks can be shown in anything like that yet. So you get here, and by default, you have some fields that exist inside of the content. So this is where it works for normal content types, is you could have add a section, and let's say it's a 2-column section. And this is where the configuration is saying I can change the background color for the whole section. Let's do, it's gray. And let's just say it's 50-50, whatever, just add it. And now we have these two. And I can go ahead and say, hey, whatever was put in the body, that should show up there if it works. See, look at that. Already not working. What if I add a block first? Okay, now that I have that there, then can I drag it there? Oh. Interesting. You should be able to drag those. I can drag this. I wonder. But either way, I can still go add block, and you have content fields, and I can just go ahead and add the body. Do you want to display the title? Sure, just for fun. And look at body shows up there. And we click save layout, and there's nothing in the body. So if we go and edit the text real quick, oh. I thought you wouldn't see this tab, but whatever. Okay, and paste that. Great, save it. And now that body shows up in that right. So let's go back to Layout Builder, and let's drop the field from here because we don't want it. We just want it in that sidebar. And then let's go ahead, click Add Custom Block. It goes straight to Basic Block because that is the only thing we have right now. And I'm going to go and do an image through... just through the WYSIWYG and insert that. And now we have this. And then you save it and you're like, man, that's a good looking website. But I think the body should be on the left. Well, luckily, you can just click and drag things between the two, which I don't even understand. You're supposed to. I'm going to go ahead and disable the Layout Builder Claro module because I'm just going to go ahead and assume that that has somehow broken something. Because I'm showing you standard Layout Builder functionality. That's supposed to work. Go back to here, Layout. Wow. Okay. That is so strange. Well, in a perfect world, you can drag those between. Let me go to those. Huh. I don't know. That is... Okay, well, you're supposed to be able to drag them between, and the cool thing is that if you've now created a second 2-column section and you're like, man, I really want this image up here, you're supposed to be able to click and drag it and place it there, and it shows up there. That doesn't work. And I do see I have lots of JavaScript errors. On quick edit. Let's go. There are I am on Drupal 8. I'm on the latest Drupal 8. But there are some patches to core we normally have to do because of weird bugs like this. Hopefully all that stuff gets fixed soon. So now I've gone ahead and turned off quick edit because that was the one throwing errors. Nope. Man. No JavaScript errors. Oh, well. You're supposed to be able to drag between. So that's one thing you can do. And how you create new blocks is you just go to like block layout, custom block library, block type. Currently, there is just the basic block type. So let's go ahead and say like media embed. And I'm sure I'm not actually... I don't probably have media turned on unless that is now a default module. But whatever, that just means it'll be an image field. Because I don't care to turn that on right now. Yes. So just an image field. Cool. And this will be required. You save it. Just go ahead and do default as much as possible to be quick. Cool. We have now created a new block type. So now when we go to the site, to the test page, you click layout. And in here, I want to go add that. So you say plus, and you'll see now that I turned off that Clara module, this is super skinny. So that is the difference. And so now I get this next thing. It's like, hey, which kind of block did you want to create? There's basic block or there's the media embed. So I click media embed. So test media embed. We don't want to display the title, but every block has to have a title. Choose file. And here's a picture of me. That works. Add. Cool. And now that's there. Thought maybe I could sneak it and drag it real quick. Didn't work. So cool. There's those. And now we have those couple different things. You also, I don't think you cannot drag sections around. That is one unfortunate thing, is if we realized, okay, we're going to do a one column section in here and where you're going to add a basic block. Do I still have that? Yeah. And once you're like this and you're like, oh man, I really decided that text should be up top, is there's no way to drag sections around. So what you generally have to do is add the new one and you drag the content to it. But today the dragging the content doesn't work. So you can't do that. But that's one issue you generally have to do, is to do that. I'm trying to think if there's any other layout builder type things. So normally, depending on the content type, like on our landing page, we hide the content fields, we hide the core, we maybe show the custom blocks, probably hide the forms, hide the text. We sometimes show the views, because maybe you would want to, you have like one that's a listing of all the people who work at the company or something. And they're like, yeah, they might want to drop that on page. And if there's views that they might want to drop, you could do that. Hide the system, because it's like breadcrumbs, main page content powered by Drupal, site branding. Like people aren't placing that on pages. We don't paste who's new on users or user fields. So like maybe those. So you can narrow it down a bunch. So we can go ahead and configure that. So we go to content types. This is a basic page. And when you go back to manage display, because we have the restrictions stuff set up, we can say, hey, allow all blocks from newly available category, restrict all blocks from newly available categories. We can say allow all is the default. And this says allow all. Everything by default is allow all. But we said, for this content type, we want to restrict so I think, oh no, we want to say allow specific fields, and we're just going to not allow any fields, and that's going to disallow every field off there. We're going to not allow that. We're going to not allow menus or system or user or core, and save that. And now if we go back to this layout, and we say add block, that list got significantly smaller. And then there is also, what we can do is we can say which layouts are available. So let's just say like they should only have the one columns or the two columns, because we don't want people creating 4 columns on this for some reason. And then we can say in the one center region, we can block by a region basis. That won't work as well for the one center. So we have a 2 column one. So we can allow, so let's see, allow whatever. Okay. So for the 2 region, in the right region, we want to not allow those, Oh, we want to say you can only place images in the right region and block everything else. Okay. Save. And now we go here and just confirming that is this. So now we already have that text there, but now if I go to this, oh, do I have no options now? I blocked too much. This one has everything. This one has nothing. So I blocked too much on that one. But now you can see, hey, I can't use anything because I restricted it all. Just too much. I'm not sure how. 2 center regions on the right, it's restrict. Allow specific. Oh well. Yeah, so that's that. I'm trying to think if there's any other. Now the one I showed where it shows like the screenshots of what the different blocks are, that module. Now one downfall of that module is it kind of overrides the whole default listing you have over here. It wants to make everything images, so it's kind of like another block blacklist type of thing that you have to do, where if you don't define like an image for it or anything, it doesn't show up. So it's not just like, oh, I want to make an image for a couple of them. It's like, nope, this is a much longer process. You kind of have to define how everything works, and that's a lot of work. We were like, oh, we'll just slap it on real quick for our client. And I gave the ticket and I was like, I don't know, it's like an hour. Go take some screenshots. And the person's like, yeah, that's going to take a lot longer because I have to do everything. I'm like, oh, turns out not as easy as I thought. Must be Drupal, I guess. Now, one more thing I want to mention is we did for ours, when we did layout builder and blocks for like the Nazarene site, this was just kind of like a philosophy type of thing. We're like, okay, how do we want to do this? There's a bunch of stuff you can do. They want really complicated layouts. So what's the best way that we could handle this for them? And we came up with the solution that we should have very complicated layouts and very basic blocks. So because it's you see like, hey, they have this thing and then it's like split into multiple columns and there's like content flying over it, and I was like, okay, is that a very complicated block that's very specific? And you say like, and you'd have a block with all of its fields, or is that a really complicated layout with like, well, in one section you put the image block and in another section you put the text block? And we went that route, that we have very generic blocks of like, here's a thing that lets you have an image that's clickable. Here's a thing that's a WYSIWYG with a couple options to change background colors with opacities and stuff like that. And here's, there's a lot of blocks, but they're all very basic, no hard coded widths or heights or anything. It just kind of like fills whatever its container is. And then we had the standard like 1, 2, 3, 4 column layouts. But for a lot of their layouts that had like a widget kind of overlaps between 2 sections, we would have it be attached to the top one. So we have like this hero image with overlap as one of the layouts. And so you upload a hero image, and then there's another region on that layout that whatever you put in there, and what worked best was like an image or a WYSIWYG, it would show up smaller, like 50% width, and overlay onto the next layout. So we came up with the solution that the layouts should be very specific and complicated, and the block should be very generic. And that worked well for us. So that's what I would recommend if you are trying to build a whole site in Layout Builder and you're like, how do I even go and do it? We just made lots and lots and lots of layouts with very interesting names, because you can only name, 2 regions with text displayed slightly differently so many ways. But that's how we did that. Cool. So are there questions? We still have like 20 minutes or so. I see a question from Adam, and that I think only blocks can be created. I'm pretty sure it has to be a block. What you can do, and it's a little bit goofier, but you could have a block that uses paragraphs or something. We do make some blocks that, for some of them, we made blocks that were, the template was just like a Drupal embed this view. It was like, hey, here's a pretty name for a embed for a view, and it's just a block. And we've done, because we do still use paragraphs a little bit, and I think we did one that was like a, it was like a tabbed thing. It was like a tabbed interface, and I think you would place the block, and then each like tab and the content underneath of it was paragraph content. But I don't think you can attach paragraphs directly.
Looks like Garrett has a question.
Yeah, he wants to take my Lego DeLorean. No, someone asked me about that the other day. It's like super expensive because it's discontinued. But it's pretty sweet. It works as any generation. So now mine's set up in the number 2 where you can turn the wheels like this and it flies, but they also had the Western one too, and the first movie. It's all in one kit, and you just put different parts on it depending on what you want. But nope, can't have it. And it's missing a door, I guess. So I have to find that. Ooh, so I see Dan. Oh, okay. Okay, so I'll do Dan first because I already said his name, then I'll circle back to the Riley question. So we prefer. Do you prefer? We do prefer Layout Builder over a paragraphs, simply because it seems like paragraphs trying to build landing pages with paragraphs, if that's what you're trying to create, was like a hack together solution, where Layout Builder is built for this. And we did some in paragraphs, and we still have sites that we maintain with paragraphs that are Layout Builder type of things with paragraphs. But depending on the client, they were always confused because of the disconnect from, I click all these buttons in the admin interface, and then that's how it looks on the page. Where this, you get the immediate feedback, and so it's very easy to know, hey, how does this work? Instead of like, oh, I need to add a thing. And because we would do the same thing, you'd have a paragraph called like a 2-column paragraph, and inside of that, you could embed any of the content paragraphs. But clients always seemed more confused about that approach. And for the most part, most people have kind of figured this out after an hour or so walking them through it. Cool. Riley, could you speak regarding the mobile friendliness built into the Layout Builder? Okay, yeah. So I don't know if by default the default layouts are mobile friendly at all. I don't know if they have special responsive breakpoints or anything, but that would just be on you putting the proper classes on your layouts. And generally you end up taking all the default layout templates and throwing them in your theme and changing them a little bit. So either through CSS or changing the templates, adding responsive classes on things, you can make like the 2-column section would break down to one tall, one on mobile. Someone says they think they use Flexbox. So I guess I just don't know. Do they use Flexbox, and then do they auto break for you when you go down to mobile? But I mean, it should be. It just probably requires you doing stuff to make sure it looks good on mobile. Let's see. Oh, I did. Yeah, actually, right. Or no, that might be mine. One of my layouts. So yeah, but it makes a div with a wrapper with 2 divs inside of it, and they're positioned left and right with Flexbox. So you just have to say, hey, for a layout, and it'd be like layout 2-column as the class or something. You say between these breakpoints, the children are flex basis 100%, and then they'll stack. And that should work pretty well. The only issue we had was on Nazarene. They wanted the heights of their layouts to be defined by the images as the backgrounds, which once you are absolutely positioning things over background images, That's just terrible on mobile. So that one was more hard to make work good on mobile because they wanted images to define the heights of everything. And you're like, that doesn't work. Outside of your very specific screen size, this does not work. So mobile was much more painful on that one, but it ended up working. It just, on mobile, images just are as big as they are. So yes, U is the correct answer. It looks very pretty on a giant iMac because that's what it was designed to look pretty on.
Josh, I had a question about, you mentioned something about performance with Layout Builder, and it might take a little hit. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So when you click this layout button, I don't have that thing up, but when you click the layout and you say like add a block, you pull every single block on your Drupal website by default. So on a bigger website with lots of blocks, it's just going to be bigger. I don't personally don't think I've ran into anything. And I think there have since been like core fixes, because I think before it would actually run really slow. But anything you can do to limit that list down, if you know for a fact 75% of those blocks will never be put in, that's where like the layout builder restrictions helps trim down that list so it's not a giant object of every single block on your website. My sample here is a base Drupal 8 site, so it's not too much, but as sites get bigger and you have, 1,000 different blocks through every view and everything like that, it just can slow down your site a little bit, just on the admin interface part, not in the actual site performance part.
Got it. Are there any other questions?
Garrett asks if the blocks connected to the node queryable via views. I don't know. I mean, technically, somewhere in the database, there is a connection. Now, if that's queryable default through views, I'm not sure. But you could probably make that relationship if that's not a core one. I've never done it. Because all of ours have kind of been thought as like, hey, these are just completely separate landing pages. But if you wanted them queryable through views to have like a listing page or something, that would make sense that you'd want to be able to do that. Get a page and get the relation of all the blocks placed on it. But I never tried. That seems crazy, so I'm just going to say no, but maybe. But it seems reasonable. So, all right. Any other questions?
That's not a question, Garrett.
Okay. So Adam, about how it communicates on mobile. No, besides you can while you're doing it, because Layout Builder takes place on the front end theme. So you could just use Layout Builder on a skinnier screen. And before you click save, you could do your things you want, collapse the right sidebar and make your screen smaller. And that would show it to you what it looks like on mobile. But no, besides just previewing it, I don't know exactly the best way to get a mobile view of your Layout Builder pages. Yeah. Sarah says maybe with like your thumbnails, you could do a mobile and a desktop image to show them both. Because, yeah, you can define
Gio's got a good question.
Yeah. Cool. So styling experience. It depends on how you're currently styling things. We switched quite a while ago to doing, I'm going to call it like atomic design, but that's not necessarily, we don't go as far as you can go with atomic design, but we do like component-based styling that each block gets styled with like a twig template. It's a single CSS file that styles that component. And so that block, in theory, looks good on any page. But now if that block really needs to be full width and someone goes and puts it in like a 4-column thing and it makes it all skinny, that might make it look bad. But that's generally what we do is we style each component separately, and then and we don't set like static heights and widths on it as much as possible. So no matter where they place it, it'll end up looking okay. And the modules we use for that, there's I think it's just called components. It lets you use like twig namespace components. So you can have a separate twig file, and then you can have its own Sass file. And we use this module called Drupal UI patterns is the name of the module. It's pretty cool. So it works in let's see. So we use this for styling. It lets you define. Lets you make a YAML file that defines your styles. And so you have your twig, you have your Sass, and you have this YAML file that tells Drupal how to use it. And so you say like, hey, I have these fields, and this is what they look like with like fake content in them. I'm going to try to get one. I'm just going to try to log in real quick and pull one up. And then if everything's styled okay by itself, it should just look okay. And then as I'm pulling that up, yep, I see someone post the components. So the thumbnails is not the layout builder styles. It is layout builder browser is that one. Is the one that lets you do the thumbnails. Someone I work with like just found this and posted it in our Slack, and we were like, oh my gosh, where's this module been all my life? We need that. Cool. So now that I'm logged in, I'm going to switch what I'm sharing real quick. So this application window, pattern library. So that UI patterns module lets you do this. So what you see here is this is every individual pattern we've defined on the website. And you're like, oh, you have a hover tile, and this is what it looks like. You have a full card, and this is what it looks like. So that's each like individual block. When you place it, this is what it looks like. And then so in theory, you place it on any page and it's going to look okay. And so this right here, this page that it just gives you like a page that shows you all the patterns and how you use them and stuff. That's just that UI patterns module gives you this page. So if you're going to build something, you can quickly see like, hey, do we have something that kind of looks like that already? And be like, yeah, we have that. That's what it kind of looks like. I'll just grab this component and change it a little bit. But that's just separate to Layout Builder. That's just how we build our websites. So started doing that quite a while ago, and it made life a lot nicer. All right. Anything else? Because we are basically out of time now.
Yeah. Got 4 minutes. Unless you need to run to the next session. But thank you very much, Josh, for for presenting. There's a lot of information here, and I think there's some cool stuff, especially that UI patterns thing. It's
completely not what I was talking about.
Right.
Justin Langley, who works for me, he did a presentation on it at DrupalCorn, I think 2 years ago, maybe. So you could check that out, and it's awesome because once you have it set up, you can even in the manage display in Drupal, you could just say, hey, use a UI pattern, and you just map Drupal fields to your UI fields, and you're just done.
Wow.
Which is pretty sweet. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a good weekend.
All right. Thank you very much.